Thom Hartmann with you, and yes, it's a live show, and yes, I'm here in Washington, D.C. The town hall that I was going to be moderating today with Bernie in New York got blown up because Bernie's got to be back here in Washington, D.C. to vote on keeping the Congress open, or keeping the government open. Mitch McConnell yesterday, but this is amazing. You know, the Republicans right now are still writing the legislation to keep the government open. And so they're still, you know, at any minute, they're going to throw some kind of nonsense in there that's just going to, you know, make it undigestible to the Democrats. And so yesterday, Mitch McConnell says, well, hey, let's just say that whatever the House of Representatives passes to the Senate, we'll just automatically today, this was yesterday, we'll just today say that automatically we agree with it, and we'll send it to the president. And it's called unanimous consent. And Chuck Schumer is like, wait a minute. You're saying we're just going to buy whatever the House tries to sell us? Are you kidding? Those people are crazy. So, you know, anyhow, I'm here in Washington, D.C., as is Bernie and everybody else. So, we've got a really interesting situation here with Donald Trump and Korea, North Korea. He's made this like empathetic statement. By the way, it's Anything Goes Friday, so anything you want to call and talk about, you know, from lizard people to the United Nations to you know, the state of the economy, or, you know, questions you have, arguments you have, whatever, feel free. Today is the day. It's 202-808-9925 is our number. So anyhow, Trump comes out with this relatively empathetic statement about Kim Jong-un, the dear leader of North Korea. Trump, who would like to, I'm sure, himself be referred to as dear leader. Who knows? Maybe they do in the White House. Dear leader, we would like to know. You know, he said, yeah, he was 27 years old when his dad died and he took over the regime, and that could be really difficult. Trump is apparently getting some sense of what's involved in governing a country, and it's shocking him. He came out and said, you know, to an interviewer yesterday, he said, I didn't realize this would be so hard. Over on Morning Joe this morning, they were all but speculating that they've changed his meds, you know, because suddenly he's got this little slightly more reflective tone. But then in the middle of the interview yesterday, where he was talking about North Korea, he passes out to the three reporters maps of his electoral victory and says, look at all that red, all those states where I won, look at all that red. And it's like, oh God, you know, the 8-year-old narcissist just keeps crawling out, you know. So, but the situation with North Korea, it's fascinating to watch this thing play out, and I'm waiting. You know, this is one of those situations where sometimes, you know, the old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. Sometimes people get it right even by getting it wrong. And I honestly don't know. And if you have an opinion, particularly if you have an informed opinion on this, I would love to hear from you. Although, as I said, it's Anything Goes Friday. You can call on any topic you wish. But could it be that threatening North Korea with military force, with substantial military force, moving submarines and aircraft carriers in and rattling sabers and saying all those things, on the one hand, bad cop. And then Rex Tillerson this morning at the UN saying, you know, we paid North Korea over $1.5 billion in the late 90s. Now, that was the deal that Bill Clinton worked out with them that stopped them, prevented them from finishing their nuclear program, froze it. And that held until village idiot George W. Bush called them the axis of evil. In a speech written by some idiot in the White House. And that immediately threw Iran and North Korea, I mean, they were two of the three axis of evil. The third, of course, was Iraq, which Bush then went on to attack. that immediately caused them to say, holy cow, the United States is calling us the axis of evil. We've got to defend ourselves. They just attacked Iraq. We're next. And hey, they may well have been right. So they both started nuclear programs back up, and that blew up Bill Clinton's deal that had tightened up North Korea. I mean, nuclear-wise, it had stopped them. And now they have the ability to build a nuclear bomb every couple of weeks. So what do you do about that? And basically, we've been largely neglecting that situation ever since George W. Bush screwed it up. And it wasn't really seriously addressed during the Bush administration or during the Obama administration that I recall. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here. And then Trump kind of blunders into this thing, and he's just now, calling, the president of Taiwan and thinking that that's not going to have an impact on China, for example, after the elections. But is it possible that Kim Jong-un is going to respond favorably to this carrot and stick, rather substantial carrot and stick? Tillerson at the UN saying, we're prepared to give you billions of dollars. Trump saying, we're prepared to rain nuclear weapons down on your head. And, is that going to be enough to get them to the bargaining table, or is that going to be enough to cause World War III? Because make no mistake about it, if North Korea and South Korea go to war, which is where it would probably begin, the mutual defense treaties that South Korea has with Japan, with Taiwan, with the United States, will get us into that war. And the mutual defense treaties that North Korea has with China, I know of. I'm assuming that there are probably a few other countries out there that they've also have mutual defense treaties with, but who knows? We'll drag China into it. And now you're in a World War III scenario, only this time it could be nuclear. I mean, this is the Cuban Missile Crisis. But during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had John Kennedy and the Soviets had Nikita Khrushchev, both seasoned, stable, thoughtful, intelligent, powerful, and I say that as in knew how to use power with grace men. And I realize I may be flattering Nikita Khrushchev more than he deserves, but actually he kept the Soviet Union out of war with the United States. So, it's kind of analogous to the Cuban Missile Crisis, except this time, instead of Nikita Khrushchev and John Kennedy, what do we have? We've got Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. It's like the Cuban Missile Crisis being played out on Simpsons or by the Simpsons or so, except the Simpsons are usually actually more thoughtful. It's just... So anyway, we all need to keep a very close eye on this. This is... And then Trump says there is a chance we could end up having a major, major conflict with North Korea. Absolutely. That's not the kind of thing that a president should say unless they really are making a threat. And maybe he is. I mean, maybe this was really well planned out and well organized. Or maybe Trump just went off and risked World War III. So anyhow, keep an eye on this space. I don't know what to do with regard to action on this, other than mourn the possibility that we could have had, a highly functioning State Department and a highly functioning White House with a Democratic president. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, has started this new office called Voice in the Department of Homeland Security, and they've got this hotline for illegal aliens. And of course, it's one of Trump's racist things about, immigrants in the United States who are here without documentation, so-called illegal immigrants, are less likely to commit crimes than natural-born Americans. And yet, Trump created this agency inside the DHS, number one, for people to say, oh, I see an illegal alien, and number two, to publicize crimes done by people, undocumented immigrants. Which is just, it's like Fox News on steroids, right? It's a stupid idea. And apparently a lot of people think so. Haunted Applebee's tweets, the number for Trump's hotline to report criminal aliens is 855-48-VOICE. Please do not call this number to describe plots of X-File episodes. Alexander McCoy tweets, wouldn't it be a shame if millions of people called this hotline to report their encounters with aliens of the UFO variety? Darth Hobo says, so they introduced the alien hotline on Alien Day. I hope Sigourney Weaver called. And, you know, it just goes on. And apparently, a lot of people called this number and, you know, to tell about their experiences being abducted or their experiences seeing flying saucers. Hey, I saw flying saucers. My dad and I were in our backyard. I was 7 years old, and there was like 5 of them flying in formation right over our house. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And Dad's like, they're flying saucers. And he gives me George Adamski's book, Inside the Spaceships, which George Adamski, it was written like in 1953 or something. This would have been like 1958. And Adamski said, who was an astronomer at Mount Palomar Observatory in California, Adamski said that he was actually taken into a flying saucer and met a guy from Saturn and all this kind of stuff. And it was all fiction, but, you know, it was marketed as nonfiction, and it created a big thing in the 50s. And my dad was all excited about it, although I'm not sure that he took it seriously. I took it seriously. And, you know, reflecting on it now, I think that those spaceships that, you know, Dad showed me flying around in the sky were probably actually one of the car dealers in town was having a big sale. And back in those days, what they used to do is they'd get a bunch of these, you know, high-intensity floodlights, and they'd shine them up on the clouds and swing them around the city, you know, to say, hey, look at something's going on here. That's probably what it was, you know, on reflection. But you know, for years I thought, geez, I've seen flying saucers. Now, on the other hand, Nigel Peacock and I were driving across UK late one night and driving by Stonehenge, and we saw this thing go flying across the sky like a comet, come to a full stop, make about a 90-degree turn, and go shooting off. I still have no idea what that was. I don't know. Should I call the hotline?